Welcome to the Daily Report, where real stories meet thoughtful analysis.
I've always wanted to be an actress.
Well, now's your big chance.
Behind the polished Hollywood images, something has fractured. The dispute between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has pulled back a curtain that was never meant to open, revealing sealed texts, unspoken alliances, and the silent involvement of some of the most powerful names in entertainment. What began as a disagreement on set has erupted into a storyline filled with hidden influence, emotional confrontations, and a series of decisions that no one can fully explain. And now, the pieces are finally starting to fall into place. In a case already filled with tension, a new wave of filings has begun to reshape how the public understands the conflict between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And the emerging details suggest that what happened behind the scenes may be far more layered than anyone expected. The conflict involving the film, It Ends With Us, has continued to expand, revealing a more intricate connection between Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, and the circle of people who were present throughout production. Recent filings, sealed text messages, and deposition statements have started to create a more complete picture of events both on the set and in private meetings. In the most recent court submission, Justin Baldoni's team presented extensive material, videos, emails, and written statements, arguing that the incidents described by Lively do not rise to the level of the misconduct she alleged. They acknowledge that certain moments occurred, including the sharing of a personal birthing video and comments about an outfit, yet insist that these moments were taken out of context and do not support the broader accusations. Among the documents is a message Baldoni sent to several close friends after a meeting at the Penthouse, shared by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. In this message, Baldoni describes the emotional toll of that encounter, recounting how Ryan Reynolds allegedly spoke to him for hours in a way that left him overwhelmed and unable to respond as he wished. But this private message is only one part of the story, because other filings point to sealed conversations, hidden revisions, and the involvement of famous friends whose influence may have shaped the direction of the film itself. As the filings continued, attention shifted toward what was not visible to the public: sealed texts, hidden revisions, and the growing question of who truly shaped the film's creative path. Alongside the material released by Baldoni's team, the court documents also referenced sealed text messages connected to Blake Lively's communications during production. These messages, withheld from public view, included conversations between Lively and several well-known friends. According to the statements of undisputed facts, these exchanges appeared to influence key decisions related to the script, the rooftop scene, and the overall direction of the film. The filings explain that Lively used what the documents describe as her famous friends to gain support for revisions she wanted implemented. Although these friends are not named directly in the text, earlier timelines and prior filings link these moments to figures such as Taylor Swift, Hugh Jackman, and others within their shared circle. The documents suggest that praise from these individuals may have strengthened Lively's position as she pushed for changes during the early stages of editing. The material also points to a period in which Lively reportedly told Sony she would not participate in promoting the film unless she had a role in the edit. During the weeks that followed, the filings state that she stayed in contact with these same friends, sharing opinions about Baldoni, discussions about scenes, and concerns about the film's creative direction. Some messages referenced in the documents describe Lively speaking about Baldoni in negative terms, while also seeking feedback and guidance from those in her circle. Because many of these messages remain sealed, the exact exchanges cannot be read publicly. However, the filings indicate that these communications played a meaningful role in shaping the film's development and may have impacted Baldoni's ability to maintain creative control, but the sealed messages were only the beginning, because the next set of documents suggests that the influence extended far beyond private texts, affecting public decisions, editing authority, and even the final version of the film itself. As the documents moved deeper into the production timeline, a new question arose. How did these private conversations and shifting alliances affect Justin Baldoni's place within his own film? The filings outline a period when Baldoni's role as director began to change in ways he had not anticipated. According to his testimony, he felt increasingly removed from decisions he once guided, even though the film had been his project from the beginning. He explained that as revisions continued and as outside voices grew more influential, he sensed his control slipping away. Statements included in the documents describe how certain creative choices, especially music selections and editing decisions, were shaped by conversations Lively held with the same well-known friends referenced earlier. These individuals, according to Baldoni's account, were involved in screenings, script discussions, and general feedback that influenced how the film was reworked. He testified that by this stage, Lively had requested that his film buy credit be removed, leaving him feeling sidelined from the project he had originally developed. The filings also state that members of the cast unfollowed him publicly around the same time, an action he viewed as a sign that the dynamic around the film had shifted in a significant way. Baldoni also recalled being told through his agency that if he did not release a statement supporting Lively or aligning with her narrative, there could be further consequences. This period, he explained, left him feeling isolated from the film's promotional efforts and from the team he had once led. These changes, when viewed alongside the sealed text messages and private conversations, formed a pattern that Baldoni believed was directly connected to the influence surrounding Lively at that time. Yet the filings reveal even more, pointing to additional interactions, on-set moments, and disputed incidents that each side claims support their position. And those details raise new questions about how the conflict escalated from creative disagreement to full legal battle. As the filings turned toward the specific events on set, the documents revealed a series of moments that each side interpreted in very different ways, adding another layer of uncertainty to an already complex dispute. Among the incidents described in the documents was the matter of the birthing video. According to the depositions, this was a personal recording belonging to producer Jamie Heath, showing the birth of his child. The video had been shared in a context Heath described as respectful and meaningful, with the presence of his family and midwife. However, Blake Lively later stated that she believed the video was inappropriate, and the questioning from her attorneys reflected that perspective. Heath explained during his deposition that he felt the video was being portrayed in a way that did not reflect its original intention. He described the questioning as intense, noting that it reduced a meaningful moment in his family's life to something he felt was being misrepresented. This difference in interpretation became one of several examples where both sides offered sharply contrasting accounts. Another event detailed in the filings involved a meeting outside Lively's trailer. Heath stated that he approached the trailer to discuss scheduling, and when he entered, he believed Lively was nursing or preparing to nurse. He said he immediately offered to return at another time, but Lively invited him to stay and asked that he look away. He recalled that the conversation lasted only a few minutes and that he left without incident. Later, however, Lively described the moment differently, saying that Heath made eye contact after being asked to look away. Heath responded that if this occurred, it was unintentional and brief, and that he had no memory of it. He explained that he did not learn of Lively's concern until reading the formal complaint. These contrasting versions of events became part of the broader pattern described in the filings, with each side presenting its interpretation of the same moments and using them to support their larger claims. But as these individual incidents were examined, the filings shifted once more, this time toward the larger question of why certain evidence remained sealed and what those hidden messages might reveal about the choices made during the film's most critical moments. As the documents returned to the subject of sealed material, a central theme emerged. Much of this dispute hinges not only on what has been revealed, but on what remains hidden from public view. The filings emphasize that many of Blake Lively's text messages with her famous friends remain under seal. These include exchanges that occurred during the early script revisions, the editing phase, and the private discussions about scenes that would later become points of disagreement. While the exact wording of these messages is not available, the documents indicate that they contain opinions, concerns, and remarks that may have influenced how the film evolved. Statements show that production company Wayfarer sought access to these messages to understand the full context of the decisions made throughout the process. They argued that these communications would clarify how certain choices were encouraged, approved, or challenged behind the scenes. They also suggested that these conversations might explain why specific creative shifts took place and why Baldoni's involvement appeared to lessen over time. According to the filings, Lively's side has insisted that these messages remain confidential. This mirrors earlier actions, such as filing the CRD complaint under seal after portions of it had already been shared with the media. The same pattern appeared again when texts previously included in an amended complaint later appeared redacted in the undisputed statements of fact. Wayfarer expressed a desire for full transparency, noting that sealed messages and concealed sections limit the public's ability to understand how decisions were made, who influenced them, and whether those influences affected Baldoni's role as director. They maintained that, without access to these communications, the broader picture remains incomplete. These disagreements over sealed material have become a defining feature of the ongoing dispute, affecting both the legal narrative and the public discussion surrounding the film. And yet, beyond the sealed messages lies another question. How did these unfolding events change the relationships among the cast, the production team, and the larger circle of Hollywood figures connected to the project? As the surrounding details came into focus, another development emerged: the shifting relationships within the cast and among the well-known figures connected to the film. According to the filings, the tension behind the scenes did not remain limited to private meetings or creative disagreements. Over time, the dynamics among the cast changed as well. Baldoni stated that several cast members unfollowed him publicly on social media shortly before the film's release. He interpreted this as a sign that the atmosphere around the project had moved in a direction that no longer included him. He also explained that during this same period, Lively was in regular communication with her famous friends, whose opinions appeared to carry significant weight in the creative decisions being made. Figures such as Taylor Swift, Hugh Jackman, and Sean Levy were mentioned in testimonies describing who was present during screenings, who offered feedback, and who provided support during key stages of the film's revision. Baldoni testified that these shifts left him feeling separated from the film in a way he had not anticipated. He believed that decisions were being shaped by conversations and alliances outside the traditional production structure. This included the music choices, scene adjustments, and other elements he once guided as director. The filings also reference moments in which he was advised through his agency to issue statements aligned with Lively's perspective. He described this as part of the pressure he experienced as the situation grew more strained. From his point of view, these developments illustrated how influence began to move away from the original creative team and toward a group of individuals with strong personal ties to Lively. These interconnected relationships between cast members, production partners, and prominent friends formed a backdrop to the broader dispute, shaping how the conflict developed both internally and in the public eye. But even as these relationships shifted, one remaining question hung over the case. Why did Blake Lively choose not to file her own summary judgment? And what does that decision reveal about the strength of each side's evidence? As the legal filings moved toward their next stage, attention turned to an unexpected decision, one that raised new questions about the direction of the case. A notable development in the court process was Blake Lively's decision not to file her own summary judgment. Observers had anticipated that both sides would submit full arguments for the judge to review, especially given the volume of material already presented. However, only Baldoni's team completed this step, leaving Lively's response absent from the record at this stage. According to the documents, a summary judgment is an opportunity for each side to present evidence and argue that a trial is unnecessary. Baldoni's filing included extensive exhibits, depositions, messages, and video material. In contrast, Lively's choice not to file led to speculation about the completeness of her evidence and her legal team's strategy moving forward. Statements in the filings note that many of Lively's allegations rely on descriptions of how she felt in various moments. Phrases such as, "I felt," "I believed," and "I thought." Her attorneys have maintained that these feelings were rooted in real experiences. However, without additional material submitted at this stage, it remains unclear how her side plans to support these claims during the next phase of the legal process. Legal analysts observing the case noted that choosing not to file a summary judgment is unusual when a party intends to demonstrate strong evidence before trial. Some have suggested that this may indicate a shift in approach or a recognition that certain statements rely more on interpretation than on documented incidents. The filings make clear that the judge will still require Lively's formal response to Baldoni's submission, but the timing of that response and the evidence it will include remain unknown. And as the legal teams prepare for the next stage, another development unfolds outside the courtroom, one that highlights how public perception, media coverage, and celebrity influence continue to shape the narrative surrounding the case. While the legal proceedings moved slowly, the conversation beyond the courtroom began shifting more rapidly, shaped by headlines, commentary, and renewed attention from the public. As news outlets began reporting on the latest filings, the tone of the coverage changed noticeably. Articles highlighted the newly released footage, the claims about improvised scenes, and the text messages describing the penthouse meeting. Media reports also noted that Baldoni was not denying certain events, but was presenting them as moments taken out of their intended context. Rather than as misconduct, public reactions to these reports varied. Yet many focused on the contrast between the documented material and the earlier allegations. Commentators observed that the narrative appearing in the press now emphasized Lively's added kissing scenes, Reynolds' reported frustration, and the long meeting at the penthouse. These details, drawn directly from the filings, began to influence how audiences interpreted the dynamic between the two actors. At the same time, references to Lively's relationships with famous friends gained renewed attention. Viewers and readers pointed out that these connections, along with mentions of private conversations and creative input, contributed to the perception that influence outside the production team played a significant role in shaping decisions. The documents also noted Lively's recent focus on promoting her hair product line, which some interpreted as an effort to redirect attention amid the ongoing headlines. Though this interpretation remains speculative, it became part of the broader conversation surrounding her public response. As discussions continued, the shift in media tone raised new questions about how public perception might affect both the legal case and the reputations of everyone involved. But even as the public examine these developments, the most revealing moments may still lie ahead, dependent on whether the sealed messages, redacted statements, and withheld communications are eventually brought to light. With the public now watching closely, the focus returned to the documents that remain hidden, pieces of evidence that could shift the understanding of this case if they were ever released. The filings make clear that a significant portion of the communication between Blake Lively and her circle remains sealed. These redacted sections include exchanges about script revisions, private concerns about specific scenes, and personal remarks made during different stages of production. Without access to these messages, it is difficult to determine how much influence they carried or how directly they shaped the choices made during the film's development. Wayfarer, the production company, has requested that the sealed material be made public. They argue that full transparency is necessary to understand how decisions were made on set, what discussions took place during pivotal moments, and whether external opinions affected the creative process. They believe that allowing the messages to remain concealed provides an incomplete picture of the events in question. Lively's side, however, maintains that these communications should remain confidential. They stress that private conversations with friends are not relevant to the core allegations and should not be exposed for public scrutiny. This disagreement has become a central point of tension, reflecting the broader challenges in determining what constitutes personal communication and what may have influenced professional decisions. The filings note that the judge will ultimately determine whether these messages and redacted sections should be unsealed. Until that decision is made, the full context of the dispute remains out of reach, leaving many questions unanswered about how deeply these unseen exchanges shaped the conflict. And as the case moves forward, one final question hangs over the entire situation. How will the resolution of these disputes affect the future careers, reputations, and creative paths of everyone involved? In the end, the conflict surrounding It Ends With Us reveals far more than a disagreement between two individuals. It reflects the intricate relationship between creative vision, personal interpretation, and the influence of powerful circles within the entertainment world. The filings illustrate how each moment, whether a conversation, a revision, or a private message, can evolve into a point of contention when trust begins to fade. Justin Baldoni's accounts describe a process he believed gradually moved beyond his control, shaped by outside voices and shifting loyalties. Blake Lively's filings, though more limited at this stage, present her perspective through the lens of personal experience and emotional impact. Between these two viewpoints lies a complex series of events that neither side interprets in the same way. The sealed messages, disputed scenes, and conflicting testimonies form a puzzle that remains incomplete. How much influence came from private conversations? How did relationships, both personal and professional, shape the final direction of the film? And why did certain decisions unfold the way they did? As the legal proceedings continue, the answers to these questions may eventually come into focus. The court will determine which evidence becomes public, which claims hold weight, and how the documented moments fit together. Until then, the case stands as a reminder of how fragile the balance can be between creative collaboration and personal conflict, especially when fame, expectations, and public scrutiny converge. What remains clear is that the outcome will influence more than the film itself. It will affect reputations, professional relationships, and the future direction of everyone involved. And as the next stages unfold, the full story, whatever it may be, will continue to shape how this chapter in the film's history is ultimately remembered.